Well, I'm out today on the Red Revolt and it's still quite cold. It's the middle of March and we should be thankful that it's not raining, but the wind has still got quite an icy bite. And I'm off to the seaside today. I mean, the route I've planned, it's going to take me quite a while to get to the seaside, but nevertheless. It's always interesting how angry people get if you ride on the pedestrian bit, where it's divided into a bike lane and a pedestrian lane. But they don't seem to mind walking in the cycling bit. And my fingers are quite cold. Probably would have been better off with a full glove today. So today, I thought I'd talk about some of the good and bad things that I've bought, some of the money I've wasted, and some of the things I bought twice. And it is a popular YouTube trope to say, oh, I'm going to tell you about the mistakes that I've made so you don't have to. But that's nonsense, really. Because people, their circumstances are all a bit different. People have to make their own mistakes. And sure, somebody else talking about their mistakes can help. But this is not one of those lecturing videos that tells you what you should and shouldn't buy. I don't want to sound melodramatic, and I've mentioned it before, but my health was in such a bad place before I started cycling, and I don't even know if I'd still be here without it. So, some of the money that I've spent could have been better spent had I known more, but none of the money I've spent on cycling has been wasted. The first thing I bought, obviously, was a good decision, and that was my Cube Hide Pro. It wasn't a great bike, but it was a good decision because it got me back into cycling. Cost me £170. And as I said, it wasn't a great bike, but I don't know, if I'd got a drop bar bike first, I might have found it more difficult to get back into it. And I had this weird idea that I didn't want to look like a cyclist because of all the bad press. And so I went out in a pair of rugby shorts and a t-shirt. And it didn't take me long to remember why you need a padded area around your undercarriage when you're cycling. So I bought some cycling shorts. The bib shorts weren't around when I was racing, so I just got an ordinary pair of shorts. And then winter came, and then got what they marketed as a skin suit. It wasn't really. Certainly not the sort of skin suit that time trial riders use. It's a pair of bib longs and a long sleeve jersey. And then I realised the advantage of bibs, and so the shorts went in the bin, all replaced by bibs. And the only downside is that every day, and I mean every day, I put my base layer on, I put my bibs on, I put my jersey on, and then I go downstairs and realise I haven't put my heart rate monitor on, so I have to strip off again. You'd think I'd learn, but I don't. And one of the key things that I've learned is that, you know, people do things for a reason. And this silly idea that I've had of not wanting to be one of those, you know, one of the knobs who's got everything, it's actually ridiculous. Because those people have these things for a reason. There's a reason that people ride in Lycra. It's because it's the most comfortable and it doesn't flap in the wind. You know, there's a reason for these things. And by trying to be a maverick and, oh yeah, I don't need all that stuff, I don't want to be seen as one of them, you're actually just depriving yourself of the things that are there for a good reason. I mean, it's like the GPS. I knew I wanted to keep track of the distance I was doing and, you know, the improvements I was making and so on. But, you know, I don't want to be one of those people. So I got a little thing about the size of a watch. It's called a Garmin 25. Rode with that, and I soon realised that actually it's quite helpful if you can see some of the data while you're riding. When you're going off on a new route, it's quite nice to have the map in front of you so you know where you're going. So that was a waste of money. And the amusing thing with that is there were two options, one with a heart rate monitor and one without. And I went, no, I don't want the heart rate monitor. And then I realised, just from a health point of view, because as I said, I was really unfit and really in a bad way when I started cycling or came back to cycling. So the heart rate monitor was quite an important thing. So I bought one separately in the end, and it cost me more. I ended up selling the GPS 25 for next to nothing and buying one with a map screen. And then I decided I was going to stick with cycling, so I wanted a better bike. And I'd heard about the cycle scheme, and I decided I wanted one, even though a second-hand one probably would have cost me a lot less, even with the benefits of the cycle scheme. But, you know, off I went looking for a new bike, and of course the prices were still really inflated due to the COVID shortage of bikes and all of that. And then I went onto the Trek website and found the dimensions of, or should I say put in my dimensions, and it came back and said, you need a 58 centimetre. And that was fine, because when I raced, even though geometry and so on was very different then, but I rode a 58 centimetre steel bike. So there was confirmation bias. And when somebody said to me, oh, I think you'll probably be better off on a 56, I said, no. So that was a mistake. Listen to your bike shop. They often know more than the manufacturer. So they said, all right, I'll get you a 58, and they did, and it was okay. But it was very difficult. I was never really comfortable on it, and it was only when I got my Giant, and I realised how uncomfortable I'd been on the trek. Things like constantly numb hands, which I just assumed were part of cycling, that I'd forgotten. Or maybe it was just because I'm getting older. But no, it was actually because the bike was the wrong size. So that was a costly mistake, because by the time I came to sell it, bike prices had come back down and there was a lot of second-hand bikes around, so it was worth pretty much nothing. So I sold it for less than half what I paid for it. So, you know, and again, when people said, oh, you should get a bike fit first, I know how bikes work, I've ridden them for years, but I should have. So that would be my advice. Get a bike fit, even if you've already got a bike but you're thinking of buying another one. Because modern bikes all have very different geometry. And as Bike Fit James says on the YouTube, you can get a 56 centimetre Cannondale and not one tube on that frame is 56 centimetres. And another thing I've learned is that you should get a helmet that's comfortable. Don't get an expensive one unless it's really comfortable, because the safety rating is pretty much the same for all of them, and the idea that one is more aero or better ventilated hasn't been my experience. They're just more expensive. And sure, the POC helmets look good on the EF riders and the Tour de France, but they cost an incredible amount of money, and they're not as comfortable as my laser helmet, which costs less than half. But clipless pedals, I recommend them all day long. And again, something I suppose I was afraid of, really, which is weird because I raced bikes with toe clips, and it's much more difficult to get out of a toe clip. But still, all sorts of horror stories of people falling off and one thing and another. But I bit the bullet, because cycling shoes, again, are a worthwhile investment. They're designed for cycling. They don't flex around the sole, which makes them much more efficient for riding. So I bought some cycling shoes and I looked at them for about 2 weeks before having the nerve to actually put the clipless pedals on the bike. But just the efficiency of pedaling and having a foot in the same place and not moving around really is worthwhile. And I know this because I've got flat pedals on my mountain bike, and it's horrible. Much more difficult to ride. And pulling up on the pedal stroke because you're clipped in doesn't really save you anything, but it's just having your feet in the same position and just developing a better rhythm and consistency. That's what makes the pedaling more efficient. And expensive tyres. I've bought expensive tyres and I haven't really noticed any difference in terms of speed or grip. I think a lot of the gains people get from expensive tyres is the placebo effect. I mean, tubeless tyres cost a lot of money. That's a fact. Do they cost too much? Yes, I think they do. But that's how much they cost. If you want to ride a cheap tyre, you're going to have to put a tube in it. You're going to have to pay more money if you want to ride tubeless. But nevertheless, You don't have to buy the most expensive tubeless tyre. So let me know in the comments, what have you bought that was worthwhile? And what have you bought that was a waste of money? And there we are. Finally made it to the seaside. So as usual, if you found this video interesting, like and subscribe.